What started as a seemingly harmless moment at a Coldplay concert has now spiraled into one of the most viral executive scandals of the year, leaving careers in shambles, families in turmoil, and social media ablaze with speculation, memes, and backlash. It all began when a short video clip shot at Gillette Stadium in Boston captured a couple on the Kiss Cam visibly affectionate, unaware they were being broadcast to the entire arena, and soon to the entire internet. What made the moment
Don't go to a Coldplay concert.
Why do you think that couple was chosen?
Byron, then CEO of Astronomer, a data platform company, and 52-year-old Kristen Kitt, the firm's recently hired chief people officer, were the subjects of the footage, and their body language was intimate to intimate for two married executives at the same company with one leading hour. As the internet quickly discovered, and he is married with teenage children, and Kristen, although divorced, had joined the company less than a year earlier. Within hours of the clip being posted to TikTok, internet sleuths had matched the faces to company profiles, LinkedIn's were scrubbed, press inquiries were sent, and people across
CEO of a company should never be dating
looked like a blatant violation of corporate ethics and professional boundaries. The company's board reacted fast, issuing a statement that its leaders are expected to set the standard in conduct and accountability, and confirming that recently that standard was not met. Byron resigned that weekend, citing personal reasons, and leaving behind a storm of consequences that extended far beyond the office. What followed was a wave of public commentary, not only about the alleged relationship but about what it symbolized, the power dynamics between a CEO
And right down here is the chief
in the age of TikTok, and the emotional ripple effect on everyone around them. A growing number of social posts and insider tips painted a complex picture of how deep the fallout might go, including one viral rumor that Andy's son was reportedly so distraught by the online attention that he became afraid to leave the house, overwhelmed by whispers at work and fearful of public judgment. The idea that a short video could alter not just a career, but the entire emotional fabric of a family resonated.
Kristen Kitt, chief people officer. Although the weird thing is that if you click on their links, LinkedIn's, and poof, they're gone. Deleted their LinkedIn's. Too bad.
Age, such fallout is becoming increasingly common. According to those close to the family, the emotional toll is significant, with anxiety, embarrassment, and social fear disrupting everyday life. What makes this case so gripping is that it touches something deeply relatable: the fear of being watched, the danger of being exposed, the question of whether privacy even exists anymore at a time when everyone has a camera and everyone has a platform. Meanwhile, the focus turned to Kristen Kitt, who was spotted outside her home for the first time since the incident, tending to her plants outside her multi-million-dollar house and not acknowledging questions from reporters. Her fate at the company remains uncertain, with no official word yet on whether she resigned or remains on leave. What's clear is that the image of an HR executive responsible for workplace boundaries being involved in a romantic moment with the company's CEO was simply too much for the public to ignore, especially when the Kiss Cam caught it all. The most biting commentaries online pointed to the absurdity that the head of human resources was the very person meant to discourage office relationships and enforce corporate codes, but was now the face of one of the year's most infamous workplace scandals. People compared it to other public cheating revelations like Scandal from Vanderpump Rules, pointing out how the internet never misses a chance to unify around moral outrage, especially when it comes to infidelity. The memes were merciless, the jokes relentless, and as the dust settled, people began reflecting on what it all meant for the future of office culture, social accountability, and the digital surveillance age. One clip from a podcast summed it up best: the moment they realized they were on camera and tried to duck, sealed their fate. If they had just acted normal, they might have flown under the radar. Instead, their guilt was written all over their body language, and the internet noticed instantly. The story also raised deeper questions about leadership and power dynamics in the workplace. Should a CEO ever be romantically involved with an R-head, even if they're both consenting adults? What kind of message does that send to the rest of the organization? How do you rebuild trust in a company where the top leaders were engaging in behavior that violated their own values and policies? What added to the emotional weight of the scandal was how it ricocheted beyond the boardroom into private lives, affecting children, spouses, colleagues, and communities. Both Andy and Kristen found themselves at the center of not just a corporate scandal but a cultural phenomenon where everyone had an opinion and everyone had a theory. As news outlets picked up the story and talk shows debated its implications, the real story was unfolding quietly behind the scenes. In the everyday moments disrupted by public shame, the families at the center of the scandal were left to pick up the pieces while the internet kept the fire going for content entertainment. And judgment, the damage control from Astronomer, was swift, but many questioned whether the resignations were enough. Others called for structural change within the company, pointing out that a single policy isn't enough to prevent power abuse when those at the top set the rules and break them. The Kiss Cam clip, now immortalized online, continues to circulate, and as it does, it serves as a warning not just about office romance, but about the speed at which the internet can reshape reputations, rewrite careers, and bring personal lives crashing into public view with little mercy and no pause button. As the scandal deepened, more voices emerged, painting a fuller and far more dramatic picture of the human impact behind the viral moment. While social media continued its loop of reaction and speculation, insiders began leaking details about what it was really like for those closest to the two executives, particularly Andy Byron's family, with anonymous sources from within the company and extended circles claiming that his teenage son had all but disappeared from his usual routines, refusing to attend social gatherings, even missing work shifts or internships due to the paralyzing anxiety caused by the global attention. The psychological impact of seeing your parent transformed overnight into a meme and public spectacle is hard to imagine. Some experts pointed out that children of public figures often face identity crises in the wake of scandals, where the line between private shame and public fallout becomes blurred. In this case, those emotional effects were compounded by the fact that the scandal was highly visual, highly intimate, and replayed millions of times across platforms. In every angle, slowed down, captioned, dissected, memified, and amplified. It was not just a story, it was a show, and one in which Andy's family never signed up to participate. One mental health counselor posted a thread online highlighting how the son might be going through secondhand trauma, feeling helpless, humiliated, or betrayed, while also being forced to field questions at school or work from peers who now view his last name as tabloid fodder. Meanwhile, attention also turned to Kristen Kitt, whose public reemergence after the scandal was both uneventful and yet striking, caught on camera tending to her plants outside her upscale home in a moment that went instantly viral. The contrast between her calm domestic posture and the internet's furious speculation only heightened curiosity and led many to wonder about the deeper dynamics at play. Was she distancing herself from the company, preparing a legal defense, navigating personal fallout, or simply trying to maintain some normalcy in the storm? The rumor mill didn't stop at professional consequences. It veered into personal territory, with posts questioning whether Andy's wife had known about the relationship beforehand and how much of the board's decision was shaped by pressure from stakeholders rather than moral concerns. People noticed that the company's leadership page had been swiftly edited, removing both Andy and Kristen's bios, but screenshots from the Wayback Machine and LinkedIn profiles confirmed the roles they once held side by side. The fact that Kristen had joined only 8 months earlier further ignited theories about whether this relationship was ongoing or a recent lapse, and whether others at the company had seen red flags before the Coldplay concert made everything public. One employee who claimed to be at the same concert described recognizing them instantly when the Kiss Cam flashed their faces, and being shocked at how familiar they were in public, acting like a couple, not just colleagues. The TikTok user whose video went viral posted a follow-up saying they were stunned by how quickly the internet unraveled the mystery and never intended to cause personal harm. But others were less sympathetic, pointing out that in positions of power, leaders must expect scrutiny, especially when breaching ethics or optics that their own companies breach. People began drawing comparisons to other CEO scandals from Silicon Valley to Wall Street, where relationships formed at the top often ended in resignation, stock dips, or legal troubles. Yet what set this one apart was the sheer intimacy of the footage, the real-time reaction, the look on their faces when they realized they were being filmed, the instinctive turn and duck, the visible panic that told 1,000 stories. And then there was the memming, from dubbed over audio to comedic reenactments, even parodies. The internet weaponized every frame of the video, turning it into a narrative about trust, professionalism, privilege, and embarrassment. What seemed like a personal lapse was transformed into a cultural event, complete with its own hashtags, influencers, commentary, and late-night jokes. Podcast hosts debated whether corporate America still had a code of conduct, or whether the lines between professional and personal had blurred beyond repair. Some took the scandal as a sign of the times, pointing to how CEOs are increasingly being held accountable for behavior that once might have been ignored or buried, while others saw it as evidence of performative outrage given how fast the story was consumed, then replaced in the internet's endless news cycle. But even if the headlines moved on, the people at the center of it could not. The psychological weight for Andy and Kristen and those around them would not simply vanish just because the internet got bored and moved to the next trending story. Experts warned that such viral exposure could lead to long-term effects, including anxiety, depression, relationship breakdowns, and career derailment, not just for the two leaders but for their families and teams. As well, workplace analysts began writing think pieces on what happens to a company's morale after a scandal of this nature, how trust in leadership erodes, how employees feel betrayed or disillusioned, how recruitment and retention suffer when top figures fall from grace, and how corporate cultures struggle to rebuild credibility after such a public breach of ethics. Former employees of Astronomer anonymously shared stories of a workplace that now felt uneasy, fractured, uncertain about the future, with whispers about who knew what when, and how deeply the board was involved in trying to contain the damage. There were even allegations of internal tensions bubbling long before the scandal broke, with some staff reportedly uncomfortable with the executive dynamic between Andy and Kristen, but unwilling to speak out, fearing retaliation or being labeled troublemakers. Now, in the aftermath, those same people felt vindicated, but also concerned about what would happen next, who would lead the company, what kind of internal audit or investigation, if any, would follow, and whether this would lead to lasting structural change or just a temporary cleanup for optics. One thing was certain: the damage had already been done, not just to the individuals involved, but to a company's brand, a family's peace of mind, and a digital audience's perception of modern leadership, trust, and transparency. The Kiss Cam footage, once a fleeting moment of entertainment, had become something much larger, a case study in ethics, accountability, privacy, and the speed of collective judgment in the digital age. As the internet frenzy surrounding the Coldplay Kiss Cam moment escalated, what began as a viral sensation quickly spiraled into a multi-layered story of corporate culture, accountability, emotional trauma, and digital reckoning. Andy, Byron, and Kristen Kitt had become the unwilling protagonists of a global narrative, one that unfolded not in courtrooms or boardrooms, but across the ever-scrolling feeds of social media platforms. Podcast recaps, late-night segments, and commentary channels fanned the flames, each dissecting the footage from a different angle. Some focused on the professional implications, others zoomed in on the psychological and emotional fallout for the families involved, while many speculated on the future of Astronomer as a company and what it represented for the tech industry as a whole. In the days following their resignations, one former employee came forward under anonymity to describe what they called a culture of blurred boundaries inside Astronomer. The source claimed that while the company publicly promoted accountability and professional standards, behind closed doors, favoritism and blurred lines were not uncommon. They alleged that Andy and Kristen's working relationship had raised eyebrows months before the Kiss Cam moment, with some junior employees uncomfortable by their closeness, but unsure how or whether to report it. This atmosphere of unease only intensified after the video surfaced, as teams scrambled to adjust to the fallout and meetings were canceled or moved to private channels. Another anonymous staffer revealed that internal morale had plummeted, with many employees fearing media exposure or unwanted public attention simply by being affiliated with the company. And as the backlash grew, Astronomer's board was forced to respond with a public statement emphasizing their commitment to ethics, but questions remained about how much they knew, and when, whether there had been warnings, whether internal protocols were followed or ignored, and whether the resignations were proactive or damage control. Meanwhile, external observers and workplace experts turned their focus to Kristen Kitt's role as head of R, noting the particular irony of someone tasked with overseeing people operations and workplace standards now being at the center of an ethics scandal. It raised broader questions about corporate responsibility and who gets to enforce rules when the enforcers themselves become the story. Some argued that this moment represented a turning point for the tech industry, long viewed as too casual to forgiving when it came to executive conduct. Others cautioned that while accountability was necessary, the internet's hunger for outrage was devouring nuance and empathy, turning private lives into punchlines and career mistakes into lifelong scars. One media critic pointed out that what made the Coldplay Kiss Cam scandal different from others was how human it looked to people caught in a moment of emotion, then panic, and then silence, a sequence of vulnerability and reaction that mirrored the complexities of real life rather than the curated control of most scandals. And yet the world responded with memes and hashtags and analysis pieces, turning it into a game of who knew what when, and why. The relentless scrutiny extended beyond the two executives as reporters began digging into their families' histories, LinkedIn profiles, past job roles, even real estate records. Kristen's divorce became a talking point, Andy's children's school affiliations were whispered about in online forums. Strangers debated the terms of possible prenups, speculated about private conversations at dinner tables, and built entire narratives. From 15 seconds of footage caught between the lights of a concert stage and the lenses of a camera. In the midst of this frenzy, a counselor specializing in crisis communication noted that the psychological toll on those involved would likely be long-lasting, particularly for the children and teenagers caught in the crossfire. He explained that when a parent becomes a viral subject, children often experience an identity rupture, where their personal sense of safety and self gets shaken by the external world's framing of their family name. These kids may begin to see the internet not as entertainment, but as a threat, a mirror that reflects only shame and loss of control over one story. And as the narrative twisted and turned, a new subplot emerged involving the mysterious disappearance of both Andy and Kristen's LinkedIn profiles. The abrupt deletion of their professional footprints struck many as symbolic not just of resignation but of erasure, a wiping clean of titles, responsibilities, and affiliations, as if trying to step out of the light and retreat into anonymity. Yet in the age of digital permanence, such deletions rarely signal true vanishing. Screenshots, archive links, and saved resumes continue to circulate, repurposed by content creators as evidence of a fall from grace, a digital breadcrumb trail of what was and what is no longer. Meanwhile, industry insiders speculated about whether the resignations had been voluntary or strategic. Some believed Andy may have been pressured by the board. Others suggested Kristen resigned to avoid a broader investigation into her hiring and role, while still others raised questions about whether both were exploring legal representation to push back against defamation or wrongful dismissal. But legal experts pointed out that the court of public opinion had already passed its verdict, and no lawsuit could undo the reputational impact already inflicted on both executives, with even major newspapers running think pieces on what the scandal revealed about CEO culture, our independence, and the limits of privacy in a camera-first world. One viral Twitter thread summarized it as the perfect collision between privilege, accountability, and voyeurism, a reminder that power does not grant invisibility and that even those at the top are vulnerable to the randomness of exposure. And as more details surfaced, more people began to ask deeper questions about how we treat public mistakes in the digital age. What lines should not be crossed, what context matters, and whether a single mistake should define an entire career or legacy. These debates played out across platforms, dividing audiences into camps of accountability, compassion, outrage, and opportunism. And through it all, the central characters remained silent. No public apologies, no statements, no interviews. Just the image of a couple illuminated by stage lights in a fleeting moment that captured far more than they ever intended. A moment that continues to echo in memes, meetings, headlines, and hashtags, with consequences still unfolding as we watch from our screens. The Coldplay Kiss Cam scandal involving Astronomer CEO and HR chief has become much more than just a viral moment. It has exposed critical issues about leadership, ethics, workplace boundaries, and the rapid spread of information in the digital age. This incident sparked widespread conversations about how power dynamics influence behavior, especially when executives hold sway over employee careers. The internet quickly identified the individuals involved and unleashed a wave of public judgment that not only affected the executives but also deeply impacted their families, with reports of anxiety, social withdrawal, and emotional strain among loved ones highlighting the human cost behind the headlines. Experts weighed in on the psychological toll of viral shame and the isolation it can cause, especially for children and relatives caught in the fallout. Media analysis framed the scandal as a modern cautionary tale, revealing society's complex relationship with privacy, accountability, and spectacle. It also underlined the challenges companies face in maintaining ethical cultures when those at the top falter. As the story continues to unfold, it serves as a stark reminder that in today's world, no one is immune to scrutiny, and every public misstep can have far-reaching and lasting consequences for individuals and families alike. This video covers legal allegations in a news context. All claims are from official filings and no guilt is implied until proven in court. Please keep all discussions respectful. Allegations are not facts until proven in court.